With all the points and miles travel we do, you would think that we are perfect at it, right? We never make mistakes. Well, you would be wrong. We are here today to share some of the major goofs we've made on our path to traveling the world nearly free with credit card points and miles. Welcome to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. We are three moms who've discovered how to leverage credit card welcome offers to get hundreds of thousands of dollars of travel expenses for nearly free. We've used credit card points and miles to take vacations to places like Hawaii, Paris, Greece, Maldives, Japan, and so much more. And the best part, we each still have 800 plus credit scores. Imagine being able to take the vacation of your dreams for nearly free. It's totally possible, and we're here to show you how. Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Pam, Alex's mom.
And I'm Jess. Let's talk points. Today we're talking about the mistakes we've made with points and miles. Yep, we goof up too, and we hope you learn two things today. Number one, mistakes happen. And number two, what you can do when they inevitably happen. So Alex, why don't you start us off with some of your points and miles mistakes?
All right, so whenever I get a new credit card, I always set it up to pay, like I set up Autopay and I pay the statement balance. And that ensures that I never have to pay any interest on the credit card. But one time, instead, it was like on a Chase Freedom Unlimited. Instead of clicking pay statement balance, I must have clicked pay minimum payment due. And so, unbeknownst to me, I was paying interest on my Freedom Unlimited card for a couple of months. So luckily, the balance on the card was low. So it wasn't like I was paying a ton of money, because balance or the interest rates on these credit cards are definitely on the higher end. And so I caught it pretty quickly, and the amounts weren't super high. So it wasn't like I'd paid hundreds or thousands of dollars in interest. It was like not that detrimental. But it just made me realize, okay, I need to do things a little, like, take my time, make sure I click the right box, because in my mind, I was paying. What happened is I went and I looked at my balance one time, like my statement, and I was like, what are these little charges here? What's happening? I was like, no, this isn't right. I pay my statement balance each month, not my minimum payment. But no, I had clicked the wrong button. So make sure you click the right button. Make sure you pay your cards on time, in full, every month, and then you'll be good. So another mistake. Well, okay, I'm going to give this a preface. I thought I made a mistake. In reality, I didn't, but I still want to bring this up because I feel like this is a very common one. So a few years ago, probably actually like 5 or so, I applied. Well, I had my husband applied for the IHG personal card. And at this time, I think we were like putting in a new fence, or putting in a fence in our backyard. And so it was like, I need a new card. I need it quickly. This one has a good offer. I guess I'll get it. But I don't know what we're going to do with the points, but I'll get it. And if you've listened to us for a bit, you know that we recommend getting co-branded cards, like especially hotel cards, and having a plan of how we'll use those points instead of just opening them willy-nilly. So I opened it willy-nilly without a plan. And I regretted that, because later on, like, I was just sitting there on this pile of IHG points. I was like, I don't know what to do with these. Like, there's really nowhere I really want to go. Like, I was thinking, oh, maybe we'll go to Yellowstone and there's a Holiday Inn Express up there. Like, we'll take the kids there and do that. And then the points were a ton more, like they raised the price or something like that. And so this had taken a 524 slot because it was a personal card. And I'm thinking, why the heck did I get this card? I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. Well, then I learned about the Kimpton Sea Fire. And I was like, that actually sounds like an amazing way to use these points. And so I used the points. My mom and I went to Kimpton Sea Fire. As you know, if you've listened to this before, that is one of our favorite hotels. And so what I thought was going to be like, oh man, like I just got this card, I should have gotten something else, ended up being okay. And so that's kind of the takeaway I feel like with this one, is sometimes we'll open a card and we'll think later on, oh, I should have got this card instead. Like, why did I get this card? Like, I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. It's going to lead to nearly free travel. Whatever travel rewards card you get, you're going to find a way to use it. And you're going to be able to do something with it that you wouldn't have probably done otherwise. So it's going to save you money. So don't stress if you open a card and you're like, I shouldn't have got that one. Maybe it'll mess up your strategy for a bit, but everything will work out. In the long run, it is all okay. So that's my mistake. I thought was a mistake, but actually was really great because I'm obsessed with Kimpton Sea Fire. Okay, my last one. This was early on in my journey, and I did not have a credit card. Like when I was first getting started, I was very conscious of having a high annual fee card, but I also wanted airport lounge access. And you don't really get those types of benefits unless you're willing to go to a premium credit card. And I, at the time, was having a hard time justifying that because I wasn't traveling that much, or I wasn't traveling through airports where I could take advantage of visiting an airport lounge. But my mom had the Ritz-Carlton card. And with the Ritz-Carlton card, you can add authorized users to that card and it's free. So I was like, oh, great. I can get priority pass. I can go visit airport lounges. I'll just make my mom or have my mom make me an authorized user on her card. So that's what I did. And then I realized after the fact, oh, geez, that took a 524 slot. Like authorized users slots take a 524 slot. You can call Chase and ask them to disregard that, but that's just a pain. And so that was a mistake because not that long after that, I ended up just getting my own card that got me airport lounge access. I mean, I still am an authorized user on that card. I'm going to just, as long as you keep that card, Mom, I'm planning on being your authorized user. The nice thing is it doesn't have a limit. Like I can bring my whole family into Priority Pass by having that card.
So it really wasn't a mistake,
Well, it was at the time.
but now it still is beneficial.
It's paid off, but also like I have the Capital One Venture X, and that one lets you bring in as many people as you want. I mean, it's subject to lounge availability, and some lounges could tell you, no, you can't bring that many people, but I could do the same thing with that. And so it wasn't worth it because I only used the Priority Pass a couple of times. And then it was like, oh, shoot, I took up a 524 slot. I've got to like rethink my strategy here and had to be aware of that. So, I didn't want to go over 524. An authorized user card is not worth a 524 slot. That's all I'm going to say about that. So there's a few of my mistakes. I mean, nothing too detrimental. I mean, it could have been bad if I didn't catch. If I was spending a ton of money on that Freedom Unlimited card and didn't catch it enough, that could have been like a lot of money that I wasted in whatever interest fees. So yeah, there we go, Mom. What about you?
Well,
Let me preface this by saying this episode was her ideas, and Jess and I are like, Mom, are you sure you want to have this up? Are you sure you want to do this? Because she's got a
I'm
boatload.
telling on myself in this episode because full transparency, I'm the queen in this group of making mistakes. And I attribute it to three things, actually. One is that historically I've traveled the most, but I don't know, Jess is getting right up there with me. So I'm bound to make more mistakes, just, logistically wise. I'm older. Now I can beat everybody out on that, and so my brain just may not be getting a little slower. And number three, I'm called Quick Start Pam. Zach from Travel Freely gave me that name, QSP. And so probably what I need to do to not make mistakes is to slow down a little bit. I see something and I just go, whoa, it's done. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that.
You guys, it is so comical because QSP is like the perfect nickname for her because everything, whether it's a blog post, whether it's like she gets the idea, 10 minutes later, she's about done whipping it all out. She's just like pedal to the metal in everything. And so sometimes when you're booking flights and you're booking hotels, you might make some mistakes because you're not double checking, you're taking your time. And so
But the good is it.
She keeps things entertaining. Let's just say that.
Yes, I entertain Alex and Jess a lot. But even though I'm QSP, it always has worked out. So I'm going to share some with you, some that were mistakes because I just did too quick, some things that just happened in my journey. I obviously have more than these two had. They had to think. I didn't have to think. I probably could have come up with more. Okay. So first off was I didn't give a thought about 5 and 24 when I first started. Now, to be honest, 5 and 24 was not as strict when I first started the points and miles game. And so there, it was like, it was kind of a rule, but there were a lot of cards that you could get that weren't underneath the rule. So I hadn't done my research really. I didn't realize what a great card the Chase Sapphire Preferred card was. No clue. And when I finally realized that, whoa, I need that card, I was over 5 and 24. And my husband was over 5 and 24. And so I didn't get it for probably 2 or 3 years into my points and miles journey. And I actually had to put us both on a credit card application freeze so that we could get under 5 and 24 and get that. And I will just tell you that the day that we were both approved for that, I was doing happy dances all over my house. I was so excited. But so
I wish we had a video of that. I wish we could see that. Jess would use that in stories.
They'll send me like little clips from videos they've made when they're together, and then I save them. Alex and I have like a shared album just with different clips from trips that we've taken, and it's always me adding the Pam ones there, and I just use it anytime we need a little laugh in stories. And Pam always texts me and is like, "Why'd you put that video in stories?" And I said, "Pam, the people want to see it. They love their Pam." And so,
yeah. So if you see those, oh, Jess posted that one.
And Pam said, "Why did you post it?" So the moral of the story with this is that you will probably go over 5 and 24 sometimes in your journey, and all is not lost. Especially if you can get business cards, because that's my husband and I. It wasn't like we weren't getting cards for a full year. We just concentrated on non-Chase business cards. So we were still getting points and miles. And so just think, really important to consider the 5 and 24. And when you are applying for cards at the beginning of your game, just kind of map it out. Make sure you're getting all those, especially those Chase cards that you want before you go over 5 and 24. Okay. Another mistake that I made, and I did this once before I was doing points and miles. And unfortunately, I guess I did learn from it because I did it since then. So I had got to London visiting my daughter. She was actually there on a study abroad program, and so I needed to have a hotel. And I got there that night. I had booked a hotel. This was paid with cash. This before I started all this. And I went to check in, and they said, "Oh, Mrs. Norge, we were expecting you the night before." I'm going, "I mean, the night before?" And then I realized that when I was thinking about my traveling, I was including the night that I was on the plane. And so luckily they didn't cancel my reservation. All was good and it was fine, but I paid for a night when didn't need to pay for a night in hotel because I was sleeping on the airplane. Well, you would think I would have learned that. And so last year, my husband and I went to Japan, Australia, New Zealand. I got to a hotel in New Zealand and I heard those horrible words. "Well, Mrs. Orge, we were expecting you last night." And I had used points and miles for this. So luckily it wasn't cash. It wasn't quite as deadly to my soul, but I didn't want to use points for a night where I wasn't staying somewhere. And again, they didn't cancel anything. And I did get one night there. But so if you are traveling and if you have an overnight connection, just really remember not to book for that night. You don't want to do that.
Just think of Pam and you will be like, "Oh yes, we're going to be traveling overnight." And I will say, like, it is a lot to think about. When I went to Maldives, or even when we went to Singapore, you're going to be missing 2 days. So you leave, let's say you leave on the 20th, you're going to arrive in your destination on the 22nd. It can be a lot to keep straight, especially when you're then going, okay, and then we're going to this destination, and then we're going here. And Pam likes to hotel hop. So that's a lot of dates to keep track of. And so I can see how you can make the mistake, but from learning from you, I've learned from your mistake. I like triple check my dates in my hotels because you can feel like it's a mess in your brain if it's just all there. Like you have to get it written out because you're moving. There's so many time zones you're working with, so many hotels. It can like be a little
I
crazy.
remember when we went to Singapore. So Pam booked our hotel in Singapore, and then I booked the hotel in Kuala Lumpur. And so I told her, we told her the dates to book, and she said, okay, I booked it. And I said, I need you to forward the confirmation email to me because I have to triple check that you have booked this hotel on the correct dates. And so hopefully I didn't offend you, Pam. I just got to do my Jess double check.
Hey, Jess, I'd be happy to send you all my itineraries, even when you're not with me, and have you triple check them. That's a great idea. Okay, so on to a few more by Pam. So this last year, I went to Florence with my sister, and I had booked a tour, and I had scheduled us to eat at this place that just sounded really good, where they had this wheel of cheese and they put the pasta in there and it has great reviews. And we get in line for this place and there's a lot of people in line. And I don't know why suddenly I just looked on my, in my calendar and all of a sudden I got this sick feeling, the pit of my stomach. And I realized I had booked it for the day before we got to Florence. I tend to book things before I get somewhere. So we did not get to eat that pasta in the cheese wheel. But then it got worse. So we were supposed to go later on that day on a Viator tour of the Duomo. And we get ready to go. And I pull up everything and I go, oh my goodness, done it again. It was for the day before. I don't know. I was on a roll with that trip. I have no idea where I got that mixed up. So now, because of those things, so I had to tell my sister twice, yeah, we're not going on that tour either. We're not doing that. So it felt really, really bad. And what I learned is to always double or triple check my dates before travel. So just made a really nice, little itinerary thing that we follow a lot. So I fill in everything and I put all my information in there. And now I am so obsessed with going through it probably 2 or 3 times before I go on the trip and making sure that everything is on the right date. I even have a little place where I go check so that I know that I checked it because I don't want to make that mistake again.
You're not going to hear another Mrs. Orange. We expected you. You're not going to hear another one of those again now that you got Jess's checkoff list.
Exactly.
Or her itinerary sheet.
Yeah. So a less costly error was taking the wrong credit card with me when I was traveling internationally. So if you take the wrong credit card, you may get home and find, like I have on a couple occasions, that you have all these, you paid $2 here, you paid 50 cents here, you paid $3 here. You paid for foreign transaction fees. So now I've just made it simple. And I take my Capital One Venture X card and I use that only when I travel internationally to pay for everything so that I don't accidentally pick up the wrong card and pay foreign transaction fee. And I'm also just getting a flat 2X on everything. So that has worked out. Now I did have one, probably the worst mistake. It doesn't really have anything to do with credit card points and miles, but it was a bad mistake. I was heading to London to babysit for my daughter while she and her husband went on a trip. And I was traveling through to Boston, was my connecting, and I decided to spend the night there. It just worked out better for times of me getting out from my airport. I had a night to spend, and that night, I got ready to check into my flight to London, and I'm filling in all my passport stuff. And I'm looking there, and I realized that the passport I brought with me was my old passport, and it was expired. And I mean, I literally could not even think of what to do. My brain shut off. It was like adrenaline was pumping. I was sick to my stomach. My daughter's relying on me to come babysit for them. And I'm just like, what do I do? What do I do? I even had to ask her to look up some stuff as my brain had so much adrenaline coursing through it that it was a fight or flight to the mat, and my brain wouldn't even work. So we figured out that luckily I was in a big city. I was in Boston. And so I was able to go and I called. I was able to, I mean, I was doing emails, I was calling, everything. I was able to get an appointment for the next morning to get an expedited passport. So I took the train into where I had to go. I was able to change my flight for one day. And I think I was traveling at this point only internationally business. And I was really surprised I was able to make that work. And I was able to get taken care of. Now, I was supposed to get there the day before, and she was going to orient me to everything that was going on. I got there and we had about 20 minutes of orientation of, where to take the kids and what to do. But it worked out. But I learned a huge message, a huge lesson here. And that was, if you get a new passport, put it far, far away. Don't keep it with your new passport, because I just grabbed a passport. I didn't realize there was a little hole punch in that passport. So that is something trust me, you never want to go through that experience that I went through. So keep your old passport. If you're keeping them because you want the stamps, and I like to look at those sometimes weird, but if you're keeping them for any reason, keep them far away. So that's one of my
You
worst.
got so lucky
So
that
lucky.
you were in a big city like Boston.
So lucky. If I'd been, because I was living in Northern California in this little tiny town there, I wouldn't have had a chance. So yeah, so that's huge. Another mistake I've made, it's not really a mistake, is not getting the best redemption you can possibly get for your points. My husband and I went to the Maldives recently. We flew on Singapore Airlines. They didn't have any saver prices, so that would have been about, I think, 107,000. I paid the advantage price of 143,000. I mean, that's not a that's not a great redemption. But sometimes that's just what works for you. It worked for my time. I love Singapore. I have a lot of
You
points
have tons of points.
because I'm continually opening up cards for the bonus, for the welcome offers. And so it worked. It worked. Okay. So, don't feel like if you do that and you find out that, someone else got a lot better redemption, or you could have got a better redemption, don't feel like you made a mistake. It really isn't a mistake, because if it works for you, it's perfect. It's the right thing for you.
Well, it probably beats what you were going to do before, which is pay a ton of money or not go because it was unaffordable. So this is a better option than, you're still saving.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So the next mistake I made was what is that Alex will well remember. We were going to
Oh, sheesh, yes.
have to help me with this one, Alex, about how this actually works.
Oh, I remember it
Okay,
vividly.
do you want to tell it?
Sure. So we had flown on Singapore Airlines to Frankfurt. My mom and I, she was doing Singapore Suites, their first class, incredible experience. I was in business class. We land in Frankfurt, and from there, we are connecting to go to Paris. So we go through customs, we get in the other area we need to be in to get our connecting flight to Paris, and we get our boarding passes, and you have to go through like these the security area. And to go through security, you just scan your boarding pass. So my mom scans her boarding pass. She's going through. I scan my boarding pass, and my boarding pass is like giving a red X. It's not letting me through the gate to get through security. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, we booked our flights together. Why is yours letting you through and mine's not letting me through? Because this was a positioning flight on the other end. This wasn't part of our itinerary from JFK to Frankfurt. So we're like, what in the world is happening? Like, why is my thing not working? Well, lo and behold, we look at our boarding passes and they are for 2 completely different flights. And the one that I'm leaving on is from and I think the flight times were very close, but they are 2 different airlines out of 2 different boarding areas. So my mom then realized she had booked 2 positioning flights on 2 different airlines. So you must have I don't know what you did first. If you booked one just yourself and then it's like, oh, we need to book our position. Like she forgot she booked one and then we booked them together. And so we look at the one that I have and then she pulls up, she finds her ticket for that same flight that I'm on. And we go to their screens, we look up where it's departing from. It's a completely different area. So we had to take a train over. We were sprinting. I mean, with our bags, because we carry on only, so we've got tons of stuff with us. We are going, so we have to go through security again, too. Once we get off the train, we are on the train. And I remember we were looking up flights in case we missed our flight. And they were literally $600.
And I said I'd pay them because it was my mistake.
Yes. She's like, I will pay for them. It's fine. But we'd get there way later. And we get to the security area we have to go through. And we were supposed to be boarding in maybe 5 minutes and we still had to go through security. So we get through security and like I said, we were sprinting. My chest was hurting because I was running so hard and fast. I mean, our things are just flying behind us. We were seen. We get to the gate and can barely breathe. And we're talking to the gate agent, asking me if our flight has left. No, our flight didn't leave. It was actually even delayed a little bit. We were perfectly fine. But, I was like, are you kidding me, Mom? What are we going to do? It was a little stressful.
Hey,
so
and if you were
make sure when you
were
book
out of
your
breath,
positioning flight, you don't book a second one.
If you were out of breath, you don't imagine what I was going through. I was sweating. I was like, where's a shower? Can I go take a shower before we board this plane? So, yeah, so my next one, I only have 2 more that I can think of. My next one was just a few weeks ago. So we get these award alerts from different newsletters. And sometimes they are so tempting. And I always go, you know what? I just want to book one of these. I'm just going to book one. Well, I got one I'm trying to think where it was. Where was it that I was going to go?
It was to Athens.
Huh? Oh, to Athens, right.
Athens.
It was a business class to Athens. And I thought, I'm going there.
No, it was first class.
Yeah, Alex was in Athens already. So I was already feeling the FOMO. So I was like, I'm booking this. So I hurried up, I transferred my points, I booked it. And then I looked at my calendar to see how it fit into my calendar. And it was about the same time that I think that I had already booked the Conrad Bora Bora. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to just change my dates, and I transferred some more points over and I booked again and I didn't check my calendar. So this time it was going to be when Jess, Alex, and I are going to Spain. So the hazard of being QSP is I learned, I've done this before. I don't think I'll ever do this again, but I've got quite a few points now. I think was in Emirates. I can't even remember, but
yeah, it was Emirates.
Yeah, Emirates. I've got quite a few points there. I will use them. But that was something. It's like, take your time, look at your calendar, don't jump to it and get all excited and have FOMO like I did. I don't think anybody else would do this. It's strictly a Pam only mistake.
Well, and the other thing is people are maybe wondering oh, why did you transfer more points from Emirates over? But when you canceled your flight, it wasn't like they deposited back into your account immediately.
Right.
You have a waiting period with Emirates.
Yeah.
Versus, if you cancel a Delta flight or United flight, something like that, you're going to get your points back right away. But with some of these international airlines, you'll get them back. It just might take a while. And so by then you would have lost the award space, which you didn't even You're not going either way, but
No, but I'm
you're
ready for
ready.
next
You've got your
time.
points ready for the next time.
That's right. But I'm going to check my calendar. Okay. My last one happened just a couple of days ago, and it wasn't a mistake that really was completely my fault. So, and that is not allowing enough time for a connecting flight. So I was coming back from Vienna. It was on a trip to Greece and Vienna. And we flew from Vienna. We had a connecting flight in Madrid and then flying into JFK. From JFK, I was flying back to Denver. I originally had 3 hours in JFK. And so I felt fine. I can get through customs in 3 hours. I got global entry. It's not a problem. I felt comfortable with that. Well, unfortunately, Delta changed the flight. They moved it up closer. And so it was like I only had a little over 2 hours. And I thought, okay, I think I can still do this. This should be fine. I've got global entry. I know my airport pretty good. I can get there. Well, the problem came when we got to Madrid and they had kind of a breakdown of the train through terminals, slowed everything down in Madrid. And we left, our flight was over an hour late and they did make up time. I knew once I got on that flight, I was like, I'm not making this. There's no way that this is going to happen. It was just, left me like less than an hour. And so you always want to think when you have a connecting flight, make sure that you have plenty of time. Sometimes you'll see these things where connecting flights and it's like, you've got 50 minutes internationally, or you've got an hour and 15 minutes, anywhere for a connecting flight or coming back into the United States. I want to see at least 3 hours, or 2 hours, at the very minimum. And luckily, I'm good on the computer. I've had a lot of things like this happen to me lately that weren't my fault, where I've had to get on and madly do stuff. So I was able to get on my computer, get in-flight Wi-Fi. I booked the Hyatt Regency at JFK. I was able to change my flights without a problem. Didn't cost me anymore. I actually think I got $20 credit, changed my friends, and it worked out fine. But the take-home message here is always make sure you have enough time for your connecting flights, because something can happen, with transportation or delays, and it's really frustrating. So there you have it. There's my tell-all that I hope many of you will learn not to make the same mistakes. And I think the biggest thing to do is don't be a QSP. Take it slower and double check everything. And the other thing is, even when you make these mistakes, I still have a heck of a good time when I travel. I still have some great memories, some great travel, some great savings, and it all works out. So, Jess, I know you don't have anywhere near what I have, but share with us what your mistakes have been.
Jess was like, I don't know if we can do this episode. I can't think of anything.
No, I thought of a few, and I actually have one that was Ted's mistake that I'm going to talk about at the end that'll make you feel better, Pam.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, y'all probably already know it. So the first one is, usually with most banks, you can cancel a card within 30 days of the annual fee hitting, and you'll get that annual fee refunded. I made a mistake and I intended to close a card, but I forgot to cancel it within 30 days of the annual fee hitting. I think it was an Amex card. I think it was like an Amex Hilton card. Luckily, the annual fee was $95. And so it wasn't like, if this had been an Amex Platinum, that would have been a much bigger mistake. So I went to cancel the card and they said, well, sure, we can cancel it, but you're past the 30 days, so we cannot refund the annual fee. At that point, I just kept it open because I'm like, if I'm going to pay the annual fee anyway, I'm just going to keep it open. But I set a reminder in my calendar for the following year to close it. So that's something to keep in mind. Like, if you know that there's a card that you want to cancel, go ahead and make sure you do it within 30 days. That's really helpful. That's something that's really helpful about the Travel Freely app. This was before I had the Travel Freely app. So now Travel Freely emails me when my annual fee is coming up. So I kind of have it on my radar to be checking to make sure, like, okay, the annual fee hit. Now I'm going to cancel this card. So it hasn't happened since then, thanks to Travel Freely, but something to keep in mind. Another one is, so with the Southwest Companion Pass, you have to add your companion to your flight. I typically, like, if I'm not flying for months, I won't add my companion right away, because anytime you make a change to your flight, you have to cancel the companion and then you can make the change to your flight. And Southwest is one of those airlines where typically I'm rebooking that flight if the price goes down and like getting points back. And so we were flying to Costa Rica, and about a week before our flight, I went to add Molly as my companion, and the flight was completely sold out. So with Southwest, you can add a companion as long as there's at least one seat available. So even if it's just the business seat, you can add a companion. Well, our flight was completely sold out, and I didn't have a seat for Molly because she was my companion. Luckily, I checked a few days later and a seat had opened up and I was able to add her. I don't really know. Yeah.
Were you
Yeah. I was like, what
panicking
am I
though, or
going to
no? Were you
do?
like, it'll work out?
There was another flight that we could have taken that had us, like the flight we were on was direct, nonstop. We could have switched to a flight that had a stop. Like that was my backup plan. I said, if I cannot add her, we will switch to a different flight that has a stop that is, the times are way worse, but at least we would all be together. Luckily, if
At least Molly
yeah,
could be on a plane.
yeah, at least Molly wouldn't be left at home. But yeah, so luckily a few days later, a seat opened up and I was able to add her. So I haven't really learned my lesson though, because I still don't add a companion right away. But I do check further out. Like I'll check a few weeks out and add a companion versus the week of the flight. What do you do, Alex? When do you add your companion?
You know what? I've had times where I forgot, but I like caught it. Like when I say I forgot, I mean I thought I'd already done it, but I realized like a couple months before I hadn't, so it wasn't something detrimental. But I get really nervous about like just forgetting all around. And so I have like notes in my phone where I keep like confirmation numbers and like the trip, like basically what you do on Google Sheets. I just make a note on my phone, and I have all of like each of us listed. And so my two oldest are mine and my husband's companions. And so I just have their name right. And if it's blank, there's no confirmation number, then I know I need to do it. I do it usually earlier. I'll wait a little bit to see if the price drops. And then once the price has dropped and I'm like, okay, it's not probably going to get lower than this, then I'll just do it so I don't have to think about it anymore. And I know it's done. Like we're going to Florida in a like little over a week. And the flights were really expensive when I first booked them, but I just booked them because I was like, I'll just watch them and hopefully the price drops. And the flights coming back dropped to like 9,000 points per person, which is really good. I think they started off at like 30 or something. So like it was a really big difference. And so once they dropped to 9, I was like, these aren't going to go down anymore. Like I'd be shocked if they went down more. So I just added my companions then. Sometimes if it's a place like Hawaii
Yeah.
over spring break, like a really busy time, I will just do it right when I book it. And I realize, okay, this is going to be annoying if it drops, I'm going to have to cancel everybody's flights and rebook them all. But it's not that hard to do. And I'd rather know we all have a seat than worry about them not getting on. And then it's a lot bigger of an issue when you're trying to get 6 people on a flight. So I do it like probably 3 months out or so. Sometimes I'll even do it right away because I don't want to think about it. And then I do a lot of canceling the companion and rebooking them because I guess I could say I'm like Jess and I have no chill, but you have more chill when it comes to
Yeah,
this.
I have chill when it comes to being inconvenienced by canceling and rebooking flight. So my last
Yeah.
one is what just recently, I think this happened a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I forgot to set my Amex, one of my new Amex cards, to auto pay. This always happens to me with banks that aren't Chase, because with Chase, I do my banking with Chase. So I have my checking and my business and my savings account and my business account with Chase. And so when I get a new Chase card, it's really easy for me to do auto pay because all my accounts are already linked. I just set it up and I select the account and everything's good. When it's a different bank like Amex and I go to pay and it's like, add your bank account, and I have to go find my account number and I have to go find my routing number. And I think I'll just do this later. I don't feel like dealing with this now. And then that leads to me just forgetting to set up auto pay altogether. So I forgot to set up auto pay. And then that resulted in me having a late fee. I got charged like a $35 late fee from Amex. Amex is really good though about refunding, about waiving the late fee if you are not habitually paying late. And so we had been traveling. I realized it when I got home that my payment was like 2 days overdue. So I made the payment and then I chatted with them and said, I'm so sorry, we were traveling. I missed this payment by 2 days. Would you be willing to waive this late fee because I don't normally pay late? And they said, oh, thank you for being a valued Amex customer. Like, we've refunded your late fee. So it always helps. Like, it never hurts to ask if it was just a mistake and you forgot to make your payment on time, to get that late fee waived. I've heard of Chase and Capital One also refunding late fees in those situations. So never hurts to ask. And then my last one was actually Ted, but it's going to make Pam feel a little bit better. So we're in Houston. There are 2 airports in Houston. There's Hobby, which is south of the city, and then there's Bush, which is north of the city. We live much, much closer to Bush Airport. And so I was in Denver with Alex and Pam. We were at the Denver Travel Show, and Ted and Molly were flying to Chicago. So I booked them on Southwest, and I purposely booked them out of Bush because we live so much closer. So I booked them on Southwest out of Bush to Chicago. I wake up the morning that they're supposed to be leaving. I check Ted's location, and he's at Hobby Airport. And my heart starts like pounding, and I immediately call him. And
I know that feeling, Jess.
I immediately call him and I say, why are you at Hobby? Your flight's out of Bush. And he said, yes, I'm aware. I have figured that out. But they didn't realize it until they went to scan their boarding pass. And an error came up and it said, wrong airport. And he looks down and he's like, oh, I'm supposed to be at Bush. Luckily, the Southwest agents, this is one of the reasons we love Southwest. They have amazing customer service. They actually, I think they felt bad for him because it was just him and a kid alone. They were able to switch him on a flight out of Hobby they didn't even charge him anything for free. They just switched him. They put him on a flight that was leaving Hobby to go to Chicago around the same time as the original flight. Didn't charge any sort of fee or anything. So it was fine, but always check and make sure that you are driving to the correct airport.
That's a good one.
You know, we've said it before, but everybody loves Ted. Like, oh, sure, we'll work that out for you and change your flight for free out of the right airport.
I know.
They love him.
He's
got
it's
the
funny
charm.
when I called him, I said, what are you going to be able to, can you make it from Hobby to Bush and make the flight? And he was like, oh no, they just switched it for me. And I said, well, did they?
That's amazing.
I said, did they charge you? And he was like, no, they just said it would be free. I was like, what?
Oh my goodness. Well, you guys know that I'm competitive. So I'd say if we were having a contest
Wait, you are?
about who makes the most mistakes, I won. I don't think that's a contest anybody really wants to win, but I won.
I will gladly give you the title of Quick Start Pam Mistake Queen.
Yeah.
Do you know what this is reminding me of, Mom?
What?
You are Monica Geller in the episode of Friends where she gives really bad massages and Chandler doesn't tell her about it. And then he does and she feels bad. And he's like, well, actually, you're like the best at giving the worst massage. And she's so competitive that she's like, so you're saying I'm the best? Anyways.
Hey, you know what's really
That's
funny,
you
guys?
right now.
When I was a nurse, there was a doctor who said that I looked like Monica, looked like
Courtney Cox?
Yes. And I was in Greece this week, and I was talking to someone, and she said, who you look like? And she said, Courtney Cox. And I'm going, what? I haven't heard that for years. So that's just really funny that you bring that up. So maybe that's why I make so many mistakes, is I'm really Monica Geller. So
well, Monica doesn't actually make mistakes, though.
Oh, okay.
Jess is actually Monica. You're just competitive like Monica. Jess is Monica because Jess is so like organized.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
But your competitiveness is Monica.
Yes.
You're both Monicas with your competitiveness.
So anyway, all of this is to say that I'm really sorry if we burst your bubbles, but we all occasionally make mistakes in this game of credit card points and miles. Some more than others, wink, wink. Unfortunately, you're going to make some mistakes too. Luckily, it's a lot easier to fix mistakes with points and miles than it is when you're paying hard cash. If you enjoyed our podcast, please share it with a friend and leave a review so more people will find it. We really appreciate your support.
Thanks so much for listening to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. Want to start jet setting even faster? Follow the links in the show notes to learn about everything we discussed in today's episode. And to stay connected and follow along, follow us on Instagram at Travel Mom Squad. We can't wait to see where in the world points and miles take you.